This is the Investor Mindset Podcast, and I'm Stephen Pesavento. And for as long as I can remember, I've been obsessed with understanding how we can think better, how we can be better, and how we can do better. And each episode, we explore lessons on motivation and mindset from the most successful real estate investors and entrepreneurs in the nation. Investor Mindset listeners, welcome back. Really excited as we just continue to grow on the iTunes charts. Wanted to share a review from Piles of Paper. Great podcast, great guests, great questions. Love the transparency. You guys touched on areas that I need to work on in my own life. Looking forward to the next show. Well, thank you for the review, and thank you to everyone who's been giving us support out there. It really does help push us up the charts on every review we get, every subscribe, and every time you share it with a friend. So let's help pass along this investor mindset to everyone we can. All right. Welcome to the Investor Mindset Podcast. I'm really excited here. I have the famous, the one, the only Joe Fairless. Hey, Joe.
Hey, looking forward to our conversation.
Awesome. So Joe is an inspiring investor with over $500 million under management. His company, Ashcroft Capital, is growing rapidly in the multifamily space. Joe is the host of the best ever real estate investing podcast, the longest running daily podcast where investors share their best advice. He's a speaker, mentor, and author, and I'm super grateful to have you.
Yeah, looking forward to it, and I'm glad that you invited me to be on the show.
Awesome. If we take a look back, obviously you're really successful. $500 million under investment is a huge number. But taking a step back, what events or influences from your childhood shaped who you are today, Joe?
Oh, I'd say, one would be my parents' divorce when I was in fourth or fifth grade, because I was actually very fortunate when my mom remarried. She married my stepdad, who treated me as a son, like a son, and my dad is also a really good man. So I was very fortunate. I had basically two really strong male role models, and that allowed me to learn from different perspectives, and so that's one thing. Another,
it's a pretty powerful thing right there. The way that you grow up and the family that you have around. How do you think that's kind of influenced maybe some of your relationships that you have today, or just the general direction that you're going?
I know how important it is to be a good business person, and I've seen both sides of the coin there, on a good business person and a bad business person, with my role models. And so I know what to do and what not to do. So when I love that this podcast is focused on mindset, because I've realized that it's not necessarily about the tactics. It's about how I approach things mentally, and really the story I tell myself when something doesn't go right. I'm a huge Tony Robbins fan, and he talks about when you have challenges, then a good question to ask, and by the way, I didn't say problems, but when you have challenges, a good problem to ask yourself is, what's not perfect yet? What's not perfect yet? Yeah, this happened, but what's not perfect yet? And it forces your mind to think about, how can you make this into an opportunity? And there's a study talks about, it compares optimists and pessimists, and more often than not, pessimists are more accurate in their assessment of their performance. They are more accurate in, hey, I really messed up here, versus optimists. They're less accurate in their actual performance. But the eye-opening thing is that optimists far exceed the business results than pessimists do. Optimists are far more successful business-wise, however that's defined. In this case, I believe it was monetarily, than pessimists. Optimists are much more successful. And the reason why is because they see what they did, and they see, okay, yeah, I messed up, but how can I make this into an opportunity, versus dwelling on, hey, this is what I messed up on, and that sucks.
Yeah, that's really powerful. So there's two things right there. The power of the questions that you ask make a huge difference. So you just reframe something into being an opportunity. Where do you feel like you started learning that stuff first and foremost? Obviously, we're both Tony Robbins fans.
Mm-hmm.
We share that kindred spirits at heart. But where do you first remember kind of getting turned on to that whole space?
Well, I've always believed that there's a solution to anything. That is a core belief of mine. I didn't need Tony Robbins to tell me that. That
Of course,
is
yeah.
something I remember thinking in college. So after I played football in high school, I went to school in Texas. So pretty much everyone plays football in high school. That's
Big
like
football.
that's a thing. And I wanted to play in college. Well, I did not get any scholarship offers for college, so I ended up walking on, or attempting to walk on, I should say, to a junior college called Blinn Community College in Brenham, Texas. I went to Blinn Junior College in Brenham, Texas, and I attempted to walk on. I did not make the team, and instead I created a flag. I was a captain of a flag football team, and we won the championship for Blinn Junior College in Brenham, Texas. But then I was like, okay, this still doesn't scratch the itch, so I went to Mary Hardin Baylor, which is a Division III school, and basically anyone can play a Division III school because they don't offer scholarships. Well, I remember training in between, going to play at Mary Hardin Baylor, and having just left Blinn Junior College. I remember training to be on the football team, and I was like, you know what, anything is possible. I can make this team. And I say anyone can play. They'll probably kick you off if you're terrible, but they do need warm bodies for the most part of the time, and I made it happen. I got on the team and I played a little bit, and then I got that out of my system. Then I went to Texas Tech, where I did not play football for Texas Tech, but I just attended there and loved the experience. And so I always had that mindset of, hey, anything's possible. I remember my oldest brother, he played college baseball, center field for a college baseball team, and he was very good in football too. And I remember when I was in high school and he was in college, and I told him I want to play football in college. He said, hey, and just the top athletes play football in college. You might want to try like baseball or something. And I remember hearing that. I remember thinking that I hear you. You're a very influential person in my life, but I just didn't believe him. And I ended up playing. Granted, not at a high level as Division III, but I ended up playing for a little bit. And it was really just to really prove out that that theory that I had, that hey, anything's possible. There's a solution to anything. It might not be the solution you envision, but the fundamental elements of the solution can be in place. And I think that's key in real estate investing too. When issues come up or challenges come up, there's a solution. It might not be what you visualize or envision the solution to be, but the fundamental elements of the solution can be in place where you can move forward.
Well, that's powerful. So you've obviously had quite a bit of success in real estate. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what your primary focus is as an investor and where you spend about 90% of your time?
A primary focus is delivering the returns that we project on our current portfolio to our investors. I mean, that's number one. Nothing else is more important than that we deliver what we expect to deliver. And the way we do that is we have the right team in place. I'll answer your 90% question in a second, but I just got to elaborate on this. The way we do that is we have the right team in place. And I am part of that team, but I am not the primary person who's ensuring that we're delivering on our projections, because I do not have that skill set that is required to make sure that we're performing at the top level on our current portfolio. We hire team members on Ashcroft Capital, our team, who have years of experience doing portfolio management, asset management, and then they work with our property management companies. I think that's the key. It is a bit of an ego hit to say, hey, I don't have that deep expertise that is required to perform at a world-class level. I mean, it sucks to have to say that, but it's true. I have certain skill sets, and I do very well I help our company in pretty good ways, focusing on what I'm very good at. And then I've learned through the years managing the portfolio and overseeing things, hey, there's other things that bring on the experts who have that deep track record. So 90% of my time, while the primary focus for our overall company is to perform on our existing portfolio, 90% of my time is speaking to investors who are currently in our deals, as well as speaking to new investors who are not, who are wanting to participate in our deals. And I actually wouldn't say, I'll backtrack on 90%. I won't say 90% of my time is doing it. I don't think any 90. Yeah. I'm not doing anything 90% of my time. There's nothing that takes up that large of a percentage. There's not any one thing that would, but the majority.
So it's really like at the end of the day, what you're the best at is going out there and building relationships, building those connections, and helping bring people that opportunity to invest in multifamily. And you've brought in people behind you and built a very tight team, considering how big you guys are, to really go out and do what you guys have been able to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's incredible. So talk to me a little bit about your philosophy, because some people I know are top line folks. They're looking at how can they grow as big as they possibly can and build these huge teams. One philosophy, it works for some people. And I know you're thinking a little bit different. Tell us about kind of your philosophy and how you've built your business.
I read a book. It's titled something like Mistakes Millionaires Make, and it was written by a gentleman who is in YPO, Young Professional Organization. I think that's what the acronym stands for. After reading the book, I did more research on YPO, and I was sold. I mean, just a phenomenal organization from what I was reading. And so I applied. And you have to meet a certain income level, which I meet. But you also have to have a certain number of employees in your company. And I did not meet that. And so I did not get into YPO. And then for some reason, they followed up with me like a month or two ago. And they're like, hey, we saw your application, saw you didn't get in because the employee thing. But if that should ever change, let me know. I think it's like 50 employees you have to have, something like that.
Wow.
And so I told him, I said, I will never be in your organization. It sounds like, I would love it if I were, but I'll never meet that qualification standard because I never want to have 50 employees. And to me, it's backwards that there would be an application process based on number of employees, because I think that's just an old school mindset. That's just dumb, because you can have a successful business and have the right team members in place and not have a large corporation and quite frankly, have a better quality of life for the most part. And so we certainly, if you factor in the property management team and our on-site team members at each of the properties, we blow past 50 people. And I have the ability to hire and fire all those people. Besides, obviously, the co-founder of my company, he and I are leading the charge. But on the ground, at the property level, I could if I chose to. But the property management company is the one that hires and fires them and manages them, and we manage the property management company, which is a beautiful thing. We do have a relatively small team. But we have a small team that's under the Ashcroft Capital umbrella, and then we have a third-party property management company that we hire out. So my philosophy is, I don't want a large corporation. I never want that. I want a corporation that is that can scale and is set up so that we're scaling it the right way, where we're still spending the time where we're spending the time in areas that have gotten us to the point where we can scale. Because I think that the next step for most companies in our shoes would be to bring the property management in-house. And there's pros and cons to that. But there's not a lot of profit margin in doing that. Certainly not from property management fees. So then it's a matter of, do you really want to bring, what we have 5 employees, 24, 60, like 250 or so people in-house and deal with that for, 2.5%, 3% fee per property? Absolutely not. At least I personally don't.
It makes so much sense, really. I mean, it's really attractive, I think, from an ego standpoint to get drawn into, we control everything. They're all our people. We're the ones who are out there, pulling all the strings. But at the end of the day, when you go and hire a vendor, it's almost as if you're hiring, a full-time team member. You get to make the decision if it's not going to work, how you're going to make the change. And sometimes hiring people internal is a drag. It sounds like you're living a pretty good life over there, and you've kind of built a lifestyle business around a very large scaling apartment building business.
I mean, how good of timing was it that Colleen, my wife, was trying to come in the office while I was answering that? Because I work from home, and it's wonderful being around my wife. I got a 5-month-old daughter, and it's great because we spend more time together than probably 95% of families in the United States. So it's a quality of life decision. But now we do have a corporate office in New York City, and a lot of the team goes into the office every day, Monday through Friday. But I've been able to design my role so that I don't need to do that because it's my company I co-founded with my business partner, so we can create it however we want to.
That's one of the benefits of co-founding it, isn't it, Joe? So I feel like we share this same experience. Obviously, I think yours is a little different than mine, but early on in my career, I remember jumping into management consulting and finding a lot of success. And I started growing up that corporate ladder, and I escaped a little bit sooner than you did. But why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of way back, the Joe before real estate, and how you ended up escaping the 9-to-5 to start building your own thing?
Oh, my first job out of college was I was an advertising major, English minor. I went to school at Texas Tech University, and my first job was at an advertising agency on Madison Avenue in New York City. I wanted to go to New York because I wanted to compete with the best of the best in advertising, and that's the perception, at least, is that's where the best of the best are in advertising in New York City. And so I wanted to start there, and I did. I was making $30,000, which was basically less than minimum wage when you factor in the hours I was working. But it was a great experience from a resume standpoint and just learning. And I climbed the corporate ladder relatively quickly, ended up making $150,000, became the youngest VP of a New York City agency. But then I just wasn't fulfilled. And so I ended up buying single family homes along the way in Texas, where I was from. And I got the 4 homes. I started teaching people how to do that because people were asking. So I had a class on the side while I had my advertising job. And then I heard people say, and who are taking the class, if you ever do something larger, let me know. This is interesting, but I don't know about the single family home stuff. And so I realized I had customers before I had a product. And anytime you have customers before you have a product, then you have a really good business idea.
That's huge. That's really powerful, because a lot of people will jump into things, and I've started businesses that didn't go anywhere, and I'm sure you've done the same.
Oh yeah, I have.
But if you don't have anybody to buy your product, then what are you even doing it for? So if you get somebody on board early on and they're asking for it, then that's really great. So when you hit that point where you weren't fulfilled, what was missing, and where did you end up finding that?
Well, I couldn't articulate it at the time, but I can now looking back, and it was growth and contribution. I didn't feel like I was growing mentally. I didn't care about what I was doing at all. I was apathetic towards, doing the stuff I was doing. And I didn't feel like what I was doing was meaningful. I just, and not that what I was doing couldn't be interpreted as meaningful from someone else's perspective. So I want to be careful if someone's listening and they're in advertising, working on, creative campaigns, or working on a 60-second spot, or, whatever. it can be meaningful based on how individuals are wired, but I didn't interpret it the way I'm wired as meaningful for what I was doing. So I knew I needed to do something else.
Yeah, it's one of those things where anything can be a growing opportunity. Anything can be an opportunity to contribute and make a difference
Yep.
if you look at it the right way. But it's not always going to be a match for you. And so when you decided to take the leap and escape the 9 to 5, you're walking away from quite a bit. And even if you were making some money in real estate, I'm sure some people thought you must have lost your mind. Like, what did your friends and family say when you finally said, "Hey, I quit the job"?
Yeah, I have so I don't know if you can see if you see in the background, but you see a blue wall with a bunch of stuff on there.
Yeah.
One of them is an email that I have printed out that I emailed my family whenever I quit, or when I announced that I was going to quit. And it says basically, I came, I conquered, but now I don't care about it at all anymore. So I'll be putting in my 2 weeks notice in a month or so. It's like January 1st, because at the time it was in November. We put in my 2 weeks notice at the beginning of January, as long as my refinance from one of my homes comes through, which it did. And I got one response. Well, I got responses from all of them. So I have 2 brothers and 1 sister, and I sent it to my mom, my dad, and stepdad, and I got responses from, I think, everyone. But my oldest brother, the one who mentioned the great athletes in football thing, he's like, "Are you sure you want to do? Sure you want to do it? It's nice to be able to do it, but sometimes when you take a leap like that, you don't have everything already, and then you could lose what you have already created to date." And I gave him, I told him, yes, I'm sure, and I told him a couple reasons why. I forget what I said, and he's like, "Okay, cool. Well, hey, more power to you." And so yeah, I mean, and then but most others were like, "All right, well, do your thing. You'll be successful." And even during the journey, before we reached the point where we're at now, along the way during the challenging times, I'd have a family member or two say, are you sure you want to do this? I mean, you could also like go into coaching or something, or if you don't like advertising more, you could do other things like that. And yeah, it's I'm very grateful for that, because that's helps fuel me even more. I don't really need that because I'm really internally driven, but it adds fuel to the fire.
Yeah. It's good to know yourself and know that you're internally driven. But when somebody else brings up something like that and says, are you sure? Is this really something that you should do? It's almost like, you know what? I know without a doubt that I'm going to go out here and I'm going to figure out my way, and I don't know exactly how it's going to work, but I'm going to make it work. And so that's really cool to hear your story. So you're a guy who obviously has had a lot of success, and being that you're driven towards personal development, helping other people. I know you coach and speak, and you obviously have one of the most famous real estate podcasts out there. What are some of the Keystone Habits, things that you do every day that you think make a big difference in your life?
Daily journal. I've been doing a daily journal for like 16, 17, 3.5, 4 years. Every single day. I've probably missed maybe 8, 9 days for the last 3, 4 years. Every day I write down just what happened in the day. I tried this year. I tried to make it a little bit more structured. Didn't work. I didn't like it. I didn't like filling. It felt more of a chore. So I was like, this year I put, I am feeling blank. I am grateful for blank. I did that for a month to see how I felt about it, and I didn't like it because I just like it to be my thing. I just write whatever I did or whatever I'm thinking about, or whatever's going on top of mind. And what's really cool about that and reinforces progress or lack thereof is being able to reflect back on a year from now. Here's what I was doing. Here's what I was thinking 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And Colleen and my wife and I, we love reading that. Now I read it to her because it's my journal, so I might have some things that are just personal for me. But I'll read her mostly what we were up to, where we're at, who we were seeing, that sort of thing. It's a lot of fun, and it also shows progress or lack thereof in certain things. That's number one. Number two is I drink a liter of water with a scoop of wheatgrass every single morning. I've been doing that for many years. And then, three, I have a vision board. I've kept a vision board for the last 3-4 years, and I actually printed out on my wall, not the one behind me, but it's one right in front of me. You can't see it on the camera, but it's 4 feet by 4 feet. So it's a large poster, very large poster with just images of certain things. And, one of the quotes on there is, "What can I do today to be better than yesterday?" And that's just a big old quote. So I'm constantly focused on what can I do today so I'm better than yesterday, because it's all about incremental improvement.
That's really great. One more example of a question that you ask yourself that ends up turning things in the right direction. So I really like that. And I think that's so smart. Journaling is one of those things that I really need to add to my repertoire. I've attempted it, but I haven't continuously made it a part of my morning or evening routine. But being able to have those magic moments and just see how your mind kind of evolves over time has got to be pretty inspiring.
Yeah, it's just a Word document, password protected, and I put the day's date and then bullet point, and then I write something, and sometimes it's a screenshot of something. I mean, it's no rules, just simple Word doc with a bullet point on the day's date.
That's great. That's really powerful. So we're at the end of the show here. We have the growth rapid fire questions, which aren't really rapid. 3 questions here for you, Joe. What's a book that's impacted your life, or one that you're most excited about right now?
Oh, I'd say Crucial Conversations, How to Communicate When the Stakes Are High and the Opinions Vary. And Cliff Notes version is you establish a mutual purpose and then you build up from there.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a new one for the list. I'm definitely going to add that in. So talking purpose, Joe, what's your purpose? Why do you do what you do?
When I die, to have on my gravestone that people were better off having come across me than not. I want people to say, you know what, I'm glad that, I had some time with Joe, and because I'm better off as a result of that. Because, that makes me feel good. And that also means that I'm optimizing the skill sets that I have, which leads to fulfillment and, helps with personal growth and business growth.
Yeah, it's funny. It doesn't matter how much money you make. I mean, it definitely makes life a little bit better. But if you're not fulfilled, there's always that emptiness. There's always that thing that's missing. So it's good that you can help people out that way. So on a similar note, who is a mentor that's inspired you to live your best life every day? Could be a business mentor, could be a family member, could be a friend.
Well, I just got done, my wife and a daughter and I just got done visiting my grandmother, who is 103 years old, living by herself, sharp as a tack, doing phenomenally well mentally. And so, learn from her, visiting with her. And her sister, my great aunt, is 98. She'll be 98 in a couple months. So, just being with them and hanging out with them, certainly inspiring.
Wow, that's really great. And one extra for you. What, from a mindset perspective, would you want to share with the audience after all the years and people that you've interviewed?
I think you take all the free advice you can get and then you decide what you want to do with it. Advice is based on the perspective of the person giving the advice, and it might not fit you at that point in time, but it's good to listen to their perspective and what they have to say. It just might not be right for you, but then you can filter out what works and what doesn't work.
That's great. So take it all in and then figure out what's the advice you want to live by. I like that. So where can people find out more about you or get in touch with you, Joe?
Oh, so if you want to learn more about Ashcroft Capital and you're looking to passively invest in deals, you can go to ashcroftcapital.com. There's a form there, or you can just go direct to investwithashcroft.com. I think that's probably the best place.
That's great. Well, guys, you just heard some great advice from Joe Fairless, incredible investor. Definitely check out the best ever real estate investing podcast. Incredible stuff there. And Joe's been around for a long time. He's going to be around for a lot longer. So thanks for being with us here today, Joe.
Hey, glad we did it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for listening to the Investor Mindset Podcast. If you like what you heard, make sure to rate, review, subscribe, and share it with a friend. Head over to theinvestormindset.com to join the Insider Club, where we share tools and strategies from the top investors and entrepreneurs on how to take it to the next level.